You finish your evening meal, clean up the kitchen, and settle in to watch the news. It is a habit many of us have kept for years. You feel drowsy, maybe a little heavy-lidded, and naturally assume that because your body is still, your brain must be winding down as well. Most people think of sleep as a kind of off switch, a moment when the biological machinery simply powers down to conserve energy. But modern brain science has shown that this belief is not only wrong, it can be genuinely harmful, particularly for those of us past the age of 60. Researchers at the University of Rochester Medical Center identified a relatively recently discovered mechanism called a glymphatic system, essentially the brain's internal drainage network. What makes it remarkable is this. It operates at roughly 10 times the intensity during sleep compared to wakefulness. During deep sleep, brain cells actually reduce in size by approximately 60%, creating space for cerebrospinal fluid to pass through the tissue and wash away harmful proteins, including beta amyloid, that build up throughout the day. When this nightly cleansing process is incomplete, or when the brain lacks the nutrients needed to power it, that toxic material remains behind. It accumulates over time and eventually forms the plaques strongly associated with serious cognitive decline. The real question then is not simply are you sleeping well, but is your brain actually cleaning itself properly? I am Dr. Brian Caldwell. With more than 35 years in geriatric medicine, I have dedicated my career to understanding the gradual physiological changes that shape how we grow older. Before we continue, I would genuinely enjoy knowing who is joining me today. Please leave a comment sharing your age and the country you are watching from. I make a real effort to read and respond to those messages, because seeing a worldwide community of older adults taking an active role in their own health is, without question, the most motivating part of what I do. If this content is helpful to you, please consider liking this video, passing along to someone who has concerns about their memory, and subscribing if you are new to this channel. We are creating a practical resource for thoughtful aging, and I am glad you are here. I want to have an honest conversation about what is actually happening inside your brain once the lights go out. In my clinic, I regularly see patients who are frightened by the prospect of memory loss. They arrive asking for prescriptions or the latest pharmaceutical product, claiming to sharpen cognition. My response is usually to redirect them toward biochemistry. An aging brain is not necessarily a failing one. In many cases, it is simply not receiving adequate nutrition during its most important working period, which happens to be nighttime. Today, we are going to examine 3 very specific, widely available foods that function as biological regulators for the brain's nightly repair process. These are not rare ingredients from distant parts of the world. They are foods you likely already have at home, but you may be consuming them at the wrong time or in the wrong combination. Let's begin with the first element of this metabolic combination, a fruit that has been unfairly criticized by some because of its sugar content, yet plays a meaningful role in the neurochemical preparation required for falling asleep. I am referring to the banana. Set aside what you may already know about potassium and muscle cramps. From a neurological standpoint, the banana is a delivery mechanism for vitamin B6 and magnesium, 2 compounds that decline significantly as we get older. In younger individuals, the body efficiently converts dietary nutrients into neurotransmitters. Once we pass 60, that enzymatic efficiency in both the gut and the brain begins to fall. We generate less serotonin and less GABA. GABA, gamma-aminobutyric acid, functions like a brake pedal for the nervous system. Without sufficient GABA, the brain remains in a state of low-level electrical activation. You may drift off to sleep, but you will not reach the deep, restorative slow-wave sleep stage where the glymphatic cleaning process actually operates. This is where the banana becomes a clinical instrument. It supplies a highly usable form of vitamin B6, which acts as the essential cofactor. Think of it as the ignition switch, needed to produce both GABA and serotonin. Without B6, the raw building blocks you consume simply circulate through the blood rather than becoming functional brain signals. Beyond that, the magnesium in a ripe banana behaves as a natural calcium channel blocker. In practical terms, this means it prevents calcium from flooding nerve cells and stimulating them. It physically calms the neurological pathways. Many of my patients describe lying down and experiencing what they call racing thoughts. In most cases, they are not anxious. They are chemically incapable of slowing their nervous system down. By introducing this particular nutrient combination about an hour before bedtime, we are essentially refilling the reservoir that allows the brain to shift into a lower gear. Timing, however, is critical. Eating a banana too early means the resulting insulin response fades before sleep arrives. Eating it right before lying down can trigger acid reflux or digestive discomfort that disrupts sleep quality. The physiologically optimal window is approximately 45 to 60 minutes before your intended sleep time. This allows for the gradual processing of tryptophan, an amino acid found in the fruit that serves as a building block for melatonin. In older adults, the conversion of tryptophan into melatonin is slower due to reduced stomach acid levels. A banana provides a natural, easily digested source that helps sidestep some of those age-related digestive limitations. One additional point worth addressing is ripeness. I advise patients to choose a banana that most people would discard, the one with brown spots on the skin. As a banana ripens, its starch converts to simpler sugars, and its antioxidant profile shifts. The concentration of available enzymatic compounds increases, making it considerably easier for an older digestive system to absorb the necessary nutrients quickly. For those managing diabetes or prediabetes, the glycemic impact is a legitimate concern. In those situations, I recommend pairing a small portion of fruit with a few almonds or walnuts. The healthy fat content slows gastric emptying, reducing the blood sugar response while still delivering the neurological benefits. The goal is not to treat this as a snack. It is a biochemical preparation. When you stabilize the brain's electrical activity with magnesium and supply the precursors for sleep hormones through B6 and tryptophan, you are effectively opening the door for the brain's cleaning process to begin. But opening that door is only the first step. Once the brain is asleep and its internal fluid circulation is active, we must address the accumulated debris itself. This brings us to a second challenge of the aging brain: oxidative stress and inflammation, what some researchers describe informally as a kind of rusting of neural connections. Addressing this requires a different biological pathway and a different set of compounds found in our next fruit. If the banana is the key that initiates deep sleep, we must then consider the repair process itself. There is a fundamental reality of biology that we cannot ignore. Simply being alive produces waste. Every thought processed, every memory retrieved, every neuronal signal fired generates metabolic byproducts known as free radicals. These are unstable molecules that damage cell membranes. In a younger body, a robust internal antioxidant system neutralizes these efficiently. After 60, however, that system slows. The balance shifts. Free radicals accumulate faster than they can be cleared, creating a state of persistent, low-grade inflammation throughout brain tissue. This is not the type of inflammation you would notice. It is silent, microscopic, and steadily destructive. It gradually erodes a myelin sheath, the protective coating around nerve fibers, causing signals to travel more slowly. This is often why aging does not strip us of intelligence, but reduces our processing speed. We know the answer. It just takes a moment longer to surface. This is where the apple enters the clinical picture. But the way most people consume this fruit off the brain protective compounds in an apple are concentrated in the skin and the layer of flesh just beneath it. Among these is a potent flavonoid called quercetin, which has attracted considerable attention in geriatric research for its ability to cross the blood-brain barrier. The blood-brain barrier is a filtration system that shields the brain from harmful substances in the bloodstream. With age, this barrier can become increasingly permeable, allowing inflammatory molecules to enter the brain and contribute to mental fog and confusion. Quercetin functions almost like a reinforcing agent for this barrier, helping preserve the brain's protected internal environment. Quercetin also appears to act directly on the hippocampus, the region responsible for converting short-term memories into long-term storage. When patients tell me, "I walked into a room and couldn't remember why," that is a momentary hippocampal lapse. It reflects a temporary failure to hold a working memory. By introducing a consistent source of quercetin in the evening, we are essentially providing anti-inflammatory support to this specific region just before it begins its nightly task of memory consolidation. The benefits of the apple extend further down into the gut. No meaningful discussion of brain health today can omit the gut-brain axis. The vagus nerve directly connects the intestines to the brain, and communication between them is constant. Apples contain a type of soluble fiber called pectin, which is not broken down in the stomach. It passes to the colon, where beneficial bacteria ferment it and produce short-chain fatty acids, most notably one called butyrate. Butyrate is particularly interesting because it enters the bloodstream and stimulates production of a protein known as brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF. BDNF essentially acts as a growth enhancer for neurons, encouraging the formation of new connections and preserving existing ones. Eating an apple, therefore, nourishes the gut bacteria that then send chemical signals prompting the brain to repair itself. This feedback loop is especially valuable for seniors, whose gut microbiome diversity tends to decrease with age. There is, however, a consideration with apples that must be carefully managed. While the skin is anti-inflammatory, the flesh carries a meaningful fructose content. Eating a large apple immediately before sleep can compete with the sleep hormones we work to optimize through the banana. Timing is therefore essential. I recommend consuming the apple earlier in the evening, roughly 90 minutes to 2 hours before sleep. This provides sufficient time for the fiber to begin fermenting and the antioxidants to enter the circulation without a blood sugar rise interfering with sleep onset. And this point is non-negotiable. Do not substitute apple juice. Juicing removes the fiber, including the critical pectin, and delivers a concentrated sugar load that spikes insulin and inflammation. That is precisely contrary to our objective. You must consume the whole fruit and chew it thoroughly to begin breaking down the tougher skin fibers. The evidence consistently links elevated systemic inflammation with cognitive decline. Seniors who show high inflammation markers in blood work tend to perform more poorly on cognitive assessments. Used correctly, the apple is a broad-spectrum anti-inflammatory tool. It reduces internal heat and prepares the biological environment. If the banana opens a door to sleep, the apple provides the cleaning agents that do the actual work inside. But one final piece remains. We have a key and a cleaning agent. What we still need is a delivery system. The brain is the most vascularly demanding organ in the body, consuming 20% of your total blood supply despite representing only 2% of your body weight. If those blood vessels are rigid, narrowed, or damaged, a condition extremely common in later life, nutrients cannot reach the neurons and waste cannot be efficiently removed. The circulatory pathways must remain open. This brings us to the third component. A fruit typically associated with breakfast, but one that performs some of its most important neurological work after dark. It directly supports the brain's microvascular health, ensuring that the oxygen and nutrients being consumed actually reach the tissue that needs them. Without this vascular support, the effectiveness of everything else we have discussed is considerably reduced. We have established that the brain requires a state of calm for sleep, and that it needs antioxidant support to manage cellular debris. But viewing the complete physiological picture of a patient over 60, I must also address the brain's infrastructure, the blood vessels themselves. Small vessel disease is one of the most frequently overlooked contributors to cognitive frailty. With age, the tiny capillaries supplying neurons can become increasingly rigid and less functional. This restricts the delivery of oxygen and essential nutrients, effectively starving portions of the brain during the night, when blood pressure naturally decreases. To address this, we turn to the orange. Most people connect oranges and vitamin C with immune function and seasonal illness prevention. While accurate, this overlooks vitamin C's essential neurological role. The brain keeps vitamin C at concentrations significantly higher than the rest of the body because it is consumed rapidly during nerve signal transmission. It acts as a supporting factor in production of dopamine and norepinephrine, chemicals that regulate focus and mental energy. For our evening discussion, though, vitamin C also acts as a scavenger in the brain's water-based environment, neutralizing toxins that fat-soluble antioxidants may not reach. The deeper benefit of the orange to the aging brain, however, lies in a bioflavonoid called hesperidin. This compound exists in high concentrations in the white pith of citrus fruit, the spongy layer that most people carefully remove and discard. Hesperidin has been demonstrated to improve endothelial function. The endothelium is the inner lining of blood vessel walls. When it functions optimally, blood vessels can expand and relax, permitting healthy circulation. By consuming hesperidin, we help keep the brain's microcirculation open and responsive. This is especially relevant at night because the glymphatic cleaning system we discussed at the outset depends on blood vessel pulsing to drive fluid movement through brain tissue. Rigid vessels impair that pumping mechanism. Introducing an orange into the evening routine essentially activates a natural vasodilator that supports a mechanical flushing process the brain relies on during sleep. But just as with the apple, consumption method matters. You must eat the whole fruit and deliberately leave some of the white pith in place. Orange juice, for most older adults, functions as a metabolic disruption. The rapid sugar load undermines rather than supports our goals. A few segments of whole orange, eaten slowly, deliver hesperidin and vitamin C within a fiber matrix that releases gradually into the bloodstream. Now, how do we integrate these three distinct biological interventions into a practical evening that does not feel burdensome? Realism matters here. I am not suggesting you prepare a fruit platter minutes before sleep. That would likely cause digestive discomfort. The key is staggering consumption to align with the body's natural digestive rhythm. I recommend thinking of this as a sunset protocol. It begins approximately 2 hours before your intended sleep time with the apple. Because it contains heavier fiber, eating it early allows the pectin to settle and the fermentation process in the gut to begin without causing bloating once you are trying to rest. Roughly 45 minutes later, about 90 minutes before sleep, have a few segments of orange. This is when you introduce vascular support, vitamin C, and hesperidin to prepare the blood vessels. Finally, 45 to 60 minutes before sleep, eat the small banana. This serves as a final biological signal. Magnesium relaxes the